Hi guys, so today I thought that instead of doing my usual style video on a Wednesday where I just go over a combo quickly and show you an effective way and what it can kind of end on, I thought that instead today I would kind of go over the main ideas behind the Blue Eyes Fiendsmith deck and what to do if you get hand trapped, what you kind of want to try and end on no matter what. And so I'll just get straight into that. So this deck is really good at going into grind games with your opponent, and that's thanks to the fiendsmith engraver and it's not in there. Well, the Maiden of White, the fiendsmith engraver, and Blue Eyes Jet Dragon, and like cards like True Light and that really helps you go into a grind game against your opponent. But often it doesn't set up the strongest first turn boards, so you just kind of have to be able to live through your opponent's turn one, and then you should hopefully be able to then play through your opponent's, just be able to play through by out advantaging your opponent completely with help from your fiendsmith cards, with help from your blue eyes cards, and just basically make it so that your opponent is constantly having to find ways to out your really strong monsters without having their really strong monsters. Because at the end of the day, Blue Eyes White Dragon has 3,000 attack, and that's a lot of attack and can be very hard to get over. And Blue Eyes Jet Dragon also has 3,000 attack and is way stickier than Blue Eyes. So that is kind of the idea of the deck. And I think no card, honestly, represents the grind game better than Fiendsmith Engraver. And obviously, Blue Eyes Jet Dragon. I would say these two cards are some of the most important cards in the deck. Jet being able to come back anytime a card is destroyed is so powerful. As long as you have a Blue Eyes Engraver on field, which is like always. And Fiendsmith Engraver is just amazing. It just like plays, it's just constantly playing and recycling and giving you infinite grind game, and also infinite really strong bodies that can go into I don't think I've actually showed this off yet, but I have started playing, because the deck is so good on the grind game, I've started playing Fiendsmith's Desiree. And this is basically just so that if I do end up going into a grind game against my opponent, I constantly have this massive 2800 body that is untargetable with sequence attached, and is also a negate just to play through my opponent's turn, just so I constantly have it. Because constantly getting back Blue Eyes is good, obviously, but it's not the strongest play you can be constantly making. So just having a constant negate body that can come back, that negates, and when sent to the graveyard also sends, is just so strong for the overall consistency, well, not the consistency, but the grind game of the deck, which makes it really nice. And the nice thing as well is you're able to make it on your turn 3 if you're going first, as well as some of your other really strong cards like your Black Rose Moonlight. And I had actually ended up taking out the Azure Eyes, and that's purely just because it kind of ends up clogging up the board too much with a body that isn't as strong as it could be. So I have just ended up taking that out to be able to have stuff like Lightstorm going into my opponent's turn and other stuff like that. So that is, so now that I've explained the main goal of the deck to try and get to the grind game, I'll explain why I really like the end board that I have shown off in previous combo videos, and why I feel it is the best M board for Blue Eyes. Now, I will admit, it's partially because of the current meta that I find it really strong, because as of right now, there isn't any Dark Ruler no more. So just having the ability to have a double Spirit plus a Wave King High Caesar just allows for so much flexibility in your, not even in your end board, but in your, it allows for so much flexibility in your, like, decision making, because if you only end on one Spirit, while one Spirit is good, if you were to tribute it off and it gets called by, there's no real way you can protect the Spirit from being called by. But if you have two, you can then just quickly go, okay, I'll go Ultimate Spirit, and then Ultimate Spirit into Lightstorm, and then the other one into Lightstorm, and then you have essentially multiple pops, and now your Omni Negate, which wasn't negated. And then this also, again, allows for better follow-up, which is always what Blue Eyes is about, because these two now get destroyed, and whenever they're both destroyed, Lightstorm allows you to reset a spell trap, target a spell trap in grave and reset it. So say you opened a kind of any line, so say maybe you open like the fiendsmith line, you can reset fiendsmith tracked to allow you to add Lurie, go Lurie, and then just do that without having to use your fiendsmith. Or it could reset your roar for better grind game, while the Blue Eyes Ultimate allows you to revive a Light Dragon. So let's say we go just revive Blue Eyes Spirit, and then we'd also have True Light up, so we just go revive Maiden and the Blue Eyes, and now suddenly we have, and because Jet is also in the grave on this M board, we also just get Jet back. So now we have, this is our board going into the next turn. It is completely full, has options to go into level 10 synchros. None of it can be destroyed until Jet gets destroyed. We have potentially more negates on Caesar. We have Fiendsmith. It's just really, really strong for allowing you to be explosive on the follow-up turns, which is what you really want to do, because whenever this deck gets to these more explosive plays that the opponent has to think, like, basically the follow-up turn allows for your plays to be so explosive that they're like must negates. You have like 10 must negates now, and your own negates to stop some of their negates. So it's so hard for the opponent to really interact with your board and know what is best to interact with your board, because suddenly you have option to go into this pattern, which is a monster negate. So if your opponent has any monster negates, you have that up. None of your opponent can't interact by destroying anything before they destroy Jet, so that's good. You also have Engraver Engrave, so he can come back, bait out any interaction by going Requiem, Send, and then just using the Blue Eyes, which might honestly just be a spur body to go into sequence, is really, really strong, because then you've just got the Desiree as well, which is another on-field Omni Negate, which again is very strong, that doesn't target. So say you're playing against something like Azamina, I believe, Saint Azamina. Obviously, it stops from targeting, but say you're able to get, like, you've had to go through a weird combo and you've got Desiree up instead as like one of your interruptions, Desiree can just negate Saint Azamina because it's a non-targeting negate, which is really, really nice. So yeah, that's really, really good. And then you can also use Desiree to go into Requiem and then get Desiree's effect to targeting and send an opponent's card to the grave, which is again really, really strong. And most of the time, even if you're going first, because you're playing, I think 17 pieces of non-engine, with 15 of them being hand traps, you've got so much just power to stop your opponent from the hand that they don't have really much. There's so much chance you draw a bunch of hand traps that could potentially be really, really devastating to your opponent, that they just don't have the ability to continue on their combos. So it's just so strong. And then that is also why a card like 1-for-1 is such a powerful card in this deck, because your opponent is like, because it basically allows you to go 1-card combo for both engines, your opponent doesn't know if they should negate this, negate the engine you're going into, because say you have 1-for-1 in your hand plus a Maiden of White, and you go like 1-for-1, pitch like a hand trap, just say, and to summon. If your opponent negates the 1-for-1 with Ash, you can just go, okay, Maiden, place True Light, full set, Wishes, and now your opponent can't stop Wishes, which is obviously really, really strong. Or let's say you have Lurie in hand, you go 1-for-1, if your opponent doesn't stop 1-for-1, you can just go, okay, 1-for-1, summon out Lurie, okay, and then link up into Requiem, go Requiem effect. That is another must stop potentially. And that if your opponent doesn't stop, you get to just go, okay, make Requiem, summon out an Engraver, Requiem equip to Engraver, make the Necroquip Princess, and then you get a free draw off of Maiden's effect because of Necroquip Princess. So there's just so much that the deck can do. There's so many different explosive plays that the deck can make because of all of these different tech cards, that it honestly feels like just such a Swiss Army knife of a deck. And there's so much of a grind game available with all of these cards that, like, your opponent really can't stop, especially if they banish anything, because for most of the cards in this deck, they don't want to be banished. But if you banish a Light Fiend, I just simply go Dispatter, and now suddenly I just have my Fiendsmith engine online again. Or if you banish a Blue Eyes, okay, I can either go Dispatter, or I can go Lightstorm to reset, Lightstorm Dragon to reset Roar, and then suddenly Lightstorm is also getting out like 1,000,000 damage, which is real. It's just so powerful that the opponent just often can't really deal with it. And it just allows you so much play and so much wiggle room to really just flex your combos, because yes, if you feel like your opponent has a bunch of hand traps that are really going to hurt you, you just play low to the ground. Say your opponent, if you feel like your opponent is going to drool you early, or if you know your hand loses to drool, you'll just wait to search until you get a Wishes available. So like, let's say you open like a Maiden plus Engraver. For me, I would probably go Maiden first so that I don't lose to drool as badly. And then I can go maiden, place true light effect to set wishes. And then even then, if I go wishes, discard something like engraver, that's just a free body engrave now that I can eventually use make go more fiendsmith combo with, because I have the level 1 barrier resonator. And talking about barrier resonator, I think it's one of the most important cards in the deck, because it is so strong for allowing you to either extend or go into your other engine through Blue Eyes. So basically, the fact that you can use it to go into the Moonlight, use it to either go Moonlight, Rose Dragon, which I have done multiple times and has genuinely been an incredible play. Like, Moonlight Rose Dragon is a fantastic card, which is really, really underrated. And many people just don't fear it as much as they probably should. But I would say this card is kind of what solidifies the entire deck together, because with other engines, the problem is you have to draw them. So while stuff like the Primate engine is really strong for Blue Eyes, it gives it a repeatable negate that is also really strong removal, your opponent can kind of just, if you don't open it, you're just playing Blue Eyes. But not with the fiendsmith engine, because of Barrier Resonator. If you open Siege on a discard, Maiden on a discard, just really anything other than like Wishes, which I will come to in a bit, because Wishes is like still okay to open with another fiendsmith card. That is usually a brick, but anything just allows you to go, okay, add Barrier Resonator, Barrier, target Maiden, and then Maiden either revive Barrier, or if you've already started with fiendsmith combo, okay, just Maiden revive another Blue Eyes, which then just allows you to, instead of having to go for something like Roar, you can go Majesty, and then suddenly you have your Blue Eyes combo plus the fiendsmith combo that has protected you from one of Blue Eyes' biggest issues, which is Nibiru. And I find that a lot of the time, fiendsmith and Blue Eyes have a lot of very similar weaknesses. So Blue Eyes, it's weak to a Bestial hitting and being revive effect, because you then don't get your Maiden and like a bunch of extenders off of that. Same with fiendsmith. If your fiendsmith revive effect gets hit by a Bestial, then you don't have enough light fiend bodies typically to go into any of your combo, and because Engraver is kind of essential to everything, you kind of need him. So being able to just use one engine to bait out the other, the hand traps that hurt the other engine, is really, really strong. And like, it's where the only real hand trap that hurts both of these decks, both of these engines, is Drolin Lockbird, because it obviously is very, very strong. But even then, there's ways to play around Droll, such as one of the funniest combos I can think of in the deck, which I have like done a surprising amount of times, and that is opening Fable Lurie plus Wishes for Eyes of Blue, because very importantly, Wishes says discard one card, and Lurie says that if this card is discarded to the grave, special summon it. So that is just completely crazy, because it allows you to go from just a 2-card hand, from like just a 2-card combo, which is what you have to do with a lot of the Spirit engines you're playing in Blue Eyes anyway. So like your Metalmorph engine, which I've showed off before, your Primate engine, you need to open up 2 cards to go into both engines, you just get to go, okay, wishes, discard Lurie, which is a fantastic discard, because then you just go, okay, wishes, discard Lurie. And then if your opponent ashes the wishes, they don't deal with the fiendsmith. And if they ash, and they can't respond to Lurie summoning itself with a bestial because you have nothing on field. So it's just so strong. And then as well, you then also get to go add something like Sage there. And then Sage plus like either your Roar or your Majesty, the two spell traps I play personally. You can obviously as well play Ultimate Fusion if you feel like that is a strong card, and it is up to personal preference. I just feel like it's a bit too bricky in a deck that already has like a million bricks. But like, let's say we add like Roar and Sage here. We then get to go Lurie, do fiendsmith stuff until we get to go to Necroquip. And because we haven't normaled, we just go normal Sage. And now from here we can either go, okay, Sage can convert into Moonlight Rose Dragon. It can convert to more Blue Eyes combo. It can add Maiden effect, and then trigger Necroquip because a card was sent to the grave from hand for effect to get a free draw, which in Blue Eyes, because you're playing so many hand traps, will typically be a hand trap. It's just so strong that your opponent really has to find like multiple hand traps, or else they're just not playing against you, really. Like, because of there being so many different ways to just stop your opponent and just go crazy on comboing, you can just really stop them and then just be so explosive with all of your plays. And I would say that is one of Blue Eyes' most key features. It's just explosivity, because it just never seems to stop, and it is always really, really strong effects that your opponent has to stop, because otherwise, if they don't stop it, then they end up losing. So like, I would say like, in one of the games that one of the games I played in the sneak peek event where I won this mat, the final game where I ended up drawing against White Forest Azamina, I ended up drawing because my opponent, even though my opponent had Mulcharmy Thua lost me, and I ended up drawing like 5 to 6 cards, it was fine because most of their cards weren't strong enough extenders to be able to just constantly just push through everything in my board. And because I was able to just add so much follow-up for the next turn to my end board, my opponent couldn't stop me. So I was just able to go, okay, keep grinding my gears to try and break their board. And finally I ended up ending on Blue Eyes Tyrant, who was just able to attack for 400 damage, reset a trap, and then because I believe he didn't destroy a card, so he had to just sit there, because I think my opponent had Chaos Angel up. But even then, like, I had so much advantage over my opponent that it did end up just being that I won because of time rules, but I had so much advantage that I was able to push it to those time rules and be constantly just trying different things and different ways to out my opponent's board. So that was really, really, that just feels like one of Blue Eyes' big advantages. And that's honestly why, even against Mulcharmies, I don't really mind playing into them. Because if I play into Mulcharmies, then I will be just adding extra follow-up to my end board. And I have played multiple games. I think I've played like 3 or 4 games where my opponent has dropped multiple mulch armies on me. And they are drawing constantly. And I'm just like, yeah, okay. My follow-up is honestly better than you drawing half, like, 5-10 cards. Because it genuinely is in this deck. You literally have so many good cards that your opponent drawing like 5-10 cards that might not help them go combo, and might only just be like low impact hand traps that don't actually have much effect on 1 or 2 of the engines. It's just so powerful. So I hope that has helped explain Blue Eyes a bit. Well, not Blue Eyes, Blue Eyes Fiendsmith, and why I like it so much, why I think it is such a powerful deck, and just kind of how I hope it kind of plays out, because I think this honestly is a better version than Primate, because while Primate is good, don't get me wrong, and you can play Primate with this as well, that feels like you're playing too much into engine. You're playing way too heavy amount of engines, and you don't get that really controlled grind game that having 15 hand traps allows. So there's just so many synergies in this deck. It just feels great. It almost feels like Fiendsmith Snake Eye in like the peak of its power. Whenever it had Beatrice unbanned, whenever it had like free Ash, free Poplar, where it was just able to go, okay, I opened just Fiendsmith card, I opened like 1 Engraver and 4 hand traps. I'll go Engraver, do all my Engraver stuff, and then end on, and then still be able to go full Fiendsmith board, where it's just absolute, not even full Fiendsmith board, sorry, full Snake Eyes and Fiendsmith board, which is just absolutely, which was crazy. And this deck honestly feels like it does the exact same thing, because not many decks have Fiendsmith just in combo that isn't just, oh, Maiden for Requiem, where there isn't really any benefit to doing that, while this deck makes it all in combo, sets up the immense grind game that both engines have, and just hand traps your opponent to oblivion. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening to me ramble on about why I think this deck is good. Don't forget, if you enjoyed, to like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you on Saturday for Locals Update episode 10, hitting the double digits. So see you later, guys. Goodbye.